Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Lee Kaplan is a regular feature right here on The Price of Business. Love the stuff that he brings, and always glad to have him on the program. And Lee Kaplan, attorney extraordinaire, business attorney. Tell us about your firm, and let's talk about our topic today.
Well, our firm specializes mainly in civil litigation, occasionally white-collar criminal matters, but primarily civil litigation, commercial civil litigation that obviously involves businesses. And I would say the vast majority of our clients are Houston-based, ranging from Fortune 10 companies to small proprietorships.
Yep. By the way, it's Smyser, Kaplan, and Veselka. You can learn more about them at skv.com. You were telling me just before we got started about some major regulations that are coming down from the EPA. What do you got for us today?
Well, the Supreme Court, of course, has said that the EPA can regulate carbon dioxide, and there are some rules that are going to issue, I think, next week. At least that's what everyone says. And the question is, how is the EPA going to regulate them? Most people believe that it will be on sort of a state-by-state basis, with every state having some kind of targets. In other words, outside the fence line regulation of power plants. Instead of requiring a specific power plant to reduce its emissions by a certain amount, the states will have targets for total emissions and also improvements in emissions. And then the problem becomes, what do you do about the states that have already taken the lead in reducing emissions? Are you punishing them if you just have a blanket percentage requirement? So they'll probably use as a baseline something from the mid-2000s, like 2005 to as late as 2008, and mandate emissions reductions on a state-by-state basis by some percentage amount from that baseline. So the states that have already taken the lead will be a little better off. What's interesting is that Texas, since it's a little bit less dependent on coal than some states and has more wind power percentage-wise than a number of states, probably most states, is going to be a little better off under these rules than you would expect.
Now, why do you believe that?
Well, because Texas has almost 10% of our energy is generated by wind power. So you have very little in the way of any carbon emissions there, and we have natural gas. And while most of the country is somewhere in the low 40% range on coal dependence, we're under that. I think I saw in the paper recently it's like 37%. And since coal plants are the maximum emitters of carbon dioxide, we are a little bit better off than some other states. And because the growth of wind power has been more recent, in other words, since whatever baseline year they're probably going to pick up, we will have, I think, more flexibility than some other states.
Yeah, very interesting. And kind of give me an overview of all the industries that you see affected or touched by this.
Well, we're all going to pay more for power. I mean, that's the real issue is that ultimately there will be some coal plants that are so expensive. Even if you have a statewide base, the states will be encouraged or even forced to come up with some formula, and there may be, sharing of carbon credits or something like that, but ultimately the coal-fired plants that are most inefficient are going to go offline, and we're going to have to replace that, which means new capital investment, which means that our electric bills will go up. And that's just a fact of life unless people don't use electrons, which, if you're in Dallas or Houston or almost any other place in Texas in the summertime, you are going to have air conditioning. If you're in the Northeast in the wintertime, you are going to have heat. And some of that's electrical generation capacity, so it's going to cost us more. No question about it.
So which court ended up siding with the EPA?
The Supreme Court ruled. There are a couple of cases. I think one of them is called American Electric Power versus Connecticut, and the other may be called Massachusetts versus EPA. But the Supreme Court has upheld the EPA's right to regulate carbon dioxide. It's as a pollutant or a problem. And so that issue is settled. Texas was on the losing side of that litigation, along with a number of other states. So the battle now will be, I think, political, and obviously this administration is committed to reducing carbon emissions. Whether the next administration will be equally committed remains to be seen.
What kind of energy is going to replace it? More efficient electric? What do you see happening as far as that goes?
I assume there'll just be more of a shift. This is, in effect, you could call it a subsidy, but it's a boost for wind energy, it's a boost for solar energy, and it's a boost for natural gas-fired plants because those have lower carbon emissions. Now, obviously, natural gas-fired plants have carbon dioxide emissions, but they're much less than coal. So we're making some economic choices here through government action.
Well, as always, you bring us interesting stuff that a lot of us hadn't even heard about. Look at it. Keep an eye on your electric bill. As you see it goes up, you'll know why it happened, thanks to Lee Kaplan. Lee Kaplan, extraordinary what he talks about, brings so much content and information to us that I tell you, it's amazing. And you cover so many different things, and that's, I guess, the benefit of being a business attorney, because it's a lot like being a business show host. We get to encounter a lot of new stuff every single day.
Everyone needed to vote. Turnout was low. The next time around is November, and I hope people will make sure they're registered and will make plans to vote.
Lee Kaplan, as always, thanks so much for being with us. skb.com, and regular contributor, always bringing great ideas and information to us. I am Kevin Price. We're going to have much more for you here after the break. Do want to remind you this content here shows up over there at usdailyreview.com. While they're liking on Facebook, follow on Twitter. And this is The Price of Business.